recording, Reg. Reg was just talking. We're just talking about how what you can do with Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that in terms of what you're doing. You were saying, Reg, that you wanted to have more than one. I was suggesting if you're going to use something like Facebook, you could set up 2 accounts, but I don't know about deleting them because we're not sure whether you can delete them. But Reg, you were saying you can delete a Hotmail account. But if you do,
you can't delete it, Jeff. If you don't use it, they will take it off.
Oh, okay. Which is a bit of a worry too when you think of it. They've taken it off, but they've still got it. So all the stuff that you ever wrote, they've got a record of, but you can't see it. Interesting concept. They've taken it off. Yeah. I know. Listen, by the way, I know with Google they've got something new there, which is what you can do is if you become deceased for any reason whatsoever, there's a there's a facility where you can go into Google and you can set it up that so that if you don't, the account is inactive for a certain period of time, it'll automatically send an email to somebody else, which is a relative of yours, something like that, and then they can then take over your account. They give them the password to your account, or they give you another password or something like that, which is not a bad idea. I don't know if you ever noticed that Norm is still, it's passed on quite a few years ago, still appears in Facebook, and he still appears in Google and Google Plus and a few things like that occasionally. He's still all there.
Yeah, I've noticed he's on my Facebook, yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so for Roger's purposes anyway, if you're listening, Roger, there is life after death. It's called the internet.
Definitely, we know that, do we? Do we know that?
Well, I know that after I pass on, that all my messages will get passed on to someone else. Although it's an interesting concept. I've got lots and lots and lots of data now, like photos, and I keep multiple copies of them and stuff like that. But I thought, what are my kids going to do with all this? It's a little bit like, all the photos you've taken, all the emails you've ever written, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot more history that we're accumulating than our forebearers did, didn't they? For example, my parents have got old photos, and I've got copies of them as well. But what's going to happen to ours? What are we going to do with it all?
The thousands. I don't know. Well, Gary's got thousands, isn't he, in cloud or somewhere?
Yeah, that's true. So what happens to that, and how long will it last for? That's another big question that a lot of the technology, like years ago I used to work for Kodak, and they said, microfilm will last 1,000 years. Well, I reckon computer technology is going to last a lot more than 1,000 years, because each time you do it, it keeps on getting refreshed. Like everything that's on, for example, we're talking about now, that's on being recorded. It's on Google in the cloud, and they've got multiple versions of it. And when they update their servers and they get new technology, they keep on updating it and updating it. So the technology keeps moving forward. Whereas the old microfilm, unless you put it into digital, when it gets 1,000 years, it's going to wear out.
Yeah. Well, we won't be worried about that.
True.
I heard them talking about wills last night, and one guy phoned in and he said, well, I won't be worried about it. It'll be the relatives. They were saying, well, Red Cross has started making wills, apparently, for $70. I got quotes a couple of years ago, and the solicitors were 400 plus for wife and I for 2 simple wills. So we went to a community lawyer out at Inala, and they do them for free. We got an address of friends, but they were saying that 50% of Australians don't have wills.
That's all right, because 50% of Australians don't have enough money to give to anybody else anyway. Probably.
Or buy a car, or yeah,
Interesting. I used to work years ago for Olivetti, all right, and I used to sell word processing equipment. And the word processing equipment, even in those days, they had standard wording for wills, and people would come into a solicitor's office and say, "I want to leave this to this and this to this and this to this." Yeah, okay, okay. Tick a few boxes on a form, put it into the word processor, boom, produces a will.
yeah,
Anyway, the long and the short of that is because I used to work with them, I've seen the wills that these solicitors use, and all you basically do is go into a word processing document, change the name of somebody else's will, put your names on it, read it, seems to be okay, there you are.
yeah.
You've done a will. In fact,
I,
that's
I reckon you're more or less right. Yeah,
yeah.
because we'd done a will in Sydney in 1999, and we wanted to change it, update it, and so I'd written out quite a bit, but the solicitor virtually did what you're saying. It covered the main points we wanted, but it was virtually a format that he used.
Yeah.
Didn't refer to notes at all.
Yeah, well, I think it's like all things nowadays because of automation and stuff like that. I don't know if solicitors or lawyers make a lot of money in doing wills, but the only thing is I do know I want to change my will because on my will it says I leave it to my children. All right, and having gone through what's it called when people die and you have to get probate. That's it. My father had to go through probate for my father-in-law. And the thing, you've got to put an ad in the paper that says, such and such has died. If anybody has any claim to this will thing, please let them know. And a lot of people troll newspapers looking for these ads and turn around and say, oh, I'm the love child of such and such, I'm entitled to such and such portion of the will.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that is if you just make out the will that says, I leave it to my children. And because when I made out my will, I didn't have any children initially, all right? So that's what it says. So now I'm going to reword the will and leave some directly to the names of my children. So I'll name my two children. So that makes it less complicated in that respect, if that's what you're worried about, And as the guy that rang to the radio program says, well, so what if somebody comes? The only thing I suppose you would feel bad if somebody that you have that just does a scam, ends up with some of your money, and your people you wanted the money to go to doesn't go to those people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if anybody wants a will, all you do is type in, wording of a will. I'm sure on the internet. I've never tried it. Find some wording, change the appropriate wording, and away you go. So I don't think you need a solicitor.
You can buy them from the post office for about $35 and do them yourself. But well, of course, I guess it's natural. The law says you shouldn't do that. Don't do that. Go to a lawyer. But yeah. But the Red Cross must have legal people who are doing it for $70. So. That's handy.
Yeah, true. So, other than the Facebook and the Twitter, you wanted to know something about Twitter too, did you?
Yeah, well, I've never used Twitter. Have you used Twitter?
No, never. I've never used Twitter. What I've done, I've never used Twitter. Because Broadband for Seniors, another thing that they do is Broadband for Seniors has webinars that appear that they run every 2 weeks, and I think there's going to be one this Friday, and it's a little bit like this sort of session, only a bit more people in it, and the only thing is you can't see the people. They don't have video on it, but they usually do a PowerPoint presentation and stuff like that. Anyway, a couple of years ago, someone did one on Twitter, and I went through the whole thing, and I watched it and stuff like that, and it didn't appeal to me, so I've never done it.
Well, yeah, I don't use it now, but it's. I feel it's good to have a bit of a knowledge about them because they're always talking about them, So, but I guess it won't make any difference to me whether I use it or not, really.
Well, the advantage of Twitter, the way I see the advantage of it is the concept of a Twitter is that you do this tweet, and a tweet is limited to about 200 characters or something like that. And now, to me, you know, I can send an email with the title of the email 200 characters, so I can send an email with a Twitter. So, but I think the big advantage of Twitter when it first came out was the fact that it also went to mobile phones, and a lot of people used to use Twitter rather than sending SMS messages. And of course, the advantage is if you send an SMS message and you're not on a unlimited SMS plan, all right, it costs you for every single one. For example, on my phone, I've got my plan. It's relatively cheap. It's 10 cents for an SMS. Some of them, I know Telstra, I think they're gone up. Their normal prices, I think, is now, I think it might be 35 cents for an SMS. So if you're sending a lot of SMSs and you're not on one of these unlimited plans or something like that, it can become quite expensive. So that's where people went to use Twitter, right? So because when you're using Twitter, you're using your data plan, and you know, if it's cost, you know, if you've got I've got a data plan which is on mine $1 for 50 megabyte. Now 50 megabyte is 50,000 characters. Well, there's a lot of 200 characters in 50,000. So I could probably send, you know, 100,000 Twitter messages, and it would take me years to send 100,000 Twitter messages, but so it basically means I get them for free, all right? So, but then, you know, so that's why people, I think, went for Twitter, because the replacement of SMS messages. But then nowadays, most people use, you know, like I use emails on my phone, and I can do it a lot bigger than you know, 200 characters or 100 characters or what it is. But there's also, I understand, but what I've said, there's other things you can do with Twitter. You can tweet something and put a hashtag on the end of it, or some sort of hashtag, which means you're linking to another tweet, and you're linking to another tweeter, or something. I mean, I don't fully understand it, but something similar to a little bit like linking to a you know, web pages or something like that. That's another advantage of Twitter. I understand, but I don't fully appreciate that. So I don't know. People tell me, oh, you could use it to do that.
Have a look at it on Broadband for Seniors page, and just, you know, when I've got time.
Okay. One thing I will mention too on that, in addition to that, those trainings things, there's also what they call a wiki space, and there's also, as I said, the Broadband for Seniors webinars, and you can watch that webinar about Twitter and give a bit of an idea. Or quite often, if you just want to say, how do you use Twitter, or the benefits of using Twitter, put it into Google and look for a video. And by the way, now that you've got unlimited broadband, or as of tomorrow, you definitely want to start looking up videos, because there's just heaps of videos on absolutely everything. Right? I watched one the other day during the weekend on the Korean War. Was not aware of how the Korean War started and how it went and all that. The documentary on the Korean War. 1.5 hours. Fantastic. I didn't know anything about it.
It wasn't a war, it was a police action, wasn't it? Didn't MacArthur name it a police action?
That's right, police action. And also, it hasn't finished. It's still going. There's just a ceasefire at the moment. It's the longest ceasefire in police action or whatever history, but it's still actually only a ceasefire, so they can start up again anytime they like.
I think the participants have been recognised as soldiers and actually received medals for it now, but I think there was a controversy over that.
Yes, there probably was too. Okay, all right, Reg. Roger's still there. Looks like we've run out of time. We're at 10:30 now. More than enough time for everybody to join. It's a pity the other people don't join. Perhaps what I'd love to do is get together with people and say, you know, like Evan and also even Roger. I know Roger's been in them in the past, and also Keith, and say, well, what was the trouble you're having? What was the difficulty? And we'll see what the difficulty was, and see if we can iron out the problems for them.
Yeah. Well, Keith, incidentally, is starting a web page. It's a Wix web page. Have you heard about? Have you seen them advertised on TV? Wix, a free web page. I think it costs you about $45 a year. But he's having difficulty getting it set up, or other people are coming in over him and using his setup or something. Because he sent me the connection to it, and I clicked on it last night, and all it brought up was a photograph of a jumble of wires. You are not. This site is not up and running yet. It's having problems.
Okay. Okay.
So Keith might be working on that, or he might have. Oh, Eureka! I've got it, or something.
Okay.
You know, because he dropped out. But we're going to a luncheon for St. Patrick's Day today. Yeah, you're going to say, well, St. Patrick's Day was yesterday, but so I'll have to go in a minute. But we're saying it's called a Wacky Wednesday lunch, and we offer, and it's every week, and it's at a couple's place. But they're saying, well, you know, we'll have St. Patrick's Day next Wednesday. And everyone said, well, St. Patrick's Day's on a Tuesday, the 17th. And they said, well, it's a bit Irish to have it the day after.
And I think that's fair enough. The Irish can do whatever they like. Irish can do whatever they want. Not a problem whatsoever.
Oh, but the head bloke in Australia, he's upset with Tony Abbott. You know, Tony only needs to open his mouth and everybody jumps into it with their feet. But he was trying to promote St. Patrick's Day. Yesterday was wearing a green tie, and he's going to have some Guinnesses, and the Irish president of Australia or something, he says he's patronising us. So all the media's jumped on to poor old Tony.
Poor old Tony. I think he's the old damned if you do, damned if you don't. You can't turn left, right, up, down, whatever. No matter what he does, it's wrong.
Exactly. Oh, there's some women ringing up saying, "Oh, I wish the media had back off him," and you know, he can't open his mouth, and they're jumping on him. But, he's got an unfortunate twist to his presentation, I guess.
I think that's the case. I don't think it matters who Prime Minister would be. Even Malcolm Turnbull and all these, doesn't matter how good they are and stuff like that. It's just that, you know, it's the old saying, I suppose. You can please some of the people some of the time, but not all the people all the time. So no matter what you do, you've got even a small proportion of people that are against you. That's still a lot of people. So many people around nowadays.
Absolutely. Well, you're going to have 50, you know, around about 45% of people against you, because when you get elected, you're either just over the line or you're just over the line by a few votes. So virtually 50% are voting for you and 50% are voting against you, aren't they?
Yeah, so I guess so.
Got the hard road. Anyway, Jeff, thanks very much.
All right. Okay, well, I'll say goodbye now, and I'll see you no doubt probably next Wednesday. I think it'll be Gary's next meeting, and we'll have a chat about it, how this went then. What I will do is this little bit that we've recorded, I'll put on my webpage and send it to everybody and say, well, if you missed out, this is what you missed out on. Me and you and me talking about all these things, and Roger listening all about it, and Roger saying absolutely nothing.
See you, Roger. See you, Jeff.
See you, Reg. See you, Roger. Bye.
Bye.